If you've just got zero point 0.1 Bitcoin tucked away right now, you might actually be sitting on a future fortune and not even know it. My name's Brett at CGX Crypto, and in this video, we're gonna dive into exactly why owning even a tiny bit of Bitcoin today could mean serious money in your pocket later. We'll talk about why Bitcoin is super limited. There'll never be more than 21 million coins. We'll look at what big investors and banks are doing, why people call Bitcoin digital gold, and how it stacks up against regular money. Stick around until the end because you'll see why holding on to just 0.1 Bitcoin now might set you up for a life of financial freedom later. So let's talk about why owning just 0.1 Bitcoin matters so much. It might sound tiny, but it's actually a really big deal. Right now, as you can see on this website from Bitcoin Magazine Pro, they have a chart here that shows the number of addresses or number of accounts with a balance of 0.1 Bitcoin or more. They have different balance amounts here with 0.01 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, and even further. But with this particular example, there are currently about 4.5 million accounts with 0.1 Bitcoin in them. This means that just a few million people in the entire world have as much Bitcoin as you do if you have 0.1 Bitcoin, making you pretty darn special. Most people don't even have Bitcoin at all. Plus, think about this. There can only ever be 21 million Bitcoins total, and billions of people are out there in the world. So if you have 0.1 Bitcoin, that means you have about 30 times more Bitcoin than the average person could ever hope to own if we all shared it evenly across the planet. So yeah, 0.1 Bitcoin is actually a much bigger deal than most people realize. Owning 0.1 Bitcoin is special because Bitcoin is not like normal money. It's way more limited. You see, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins total. Right now, around 19 million Bitcoins have been mined, and people estimate about 3 million are lost forever because plenty of people have forgotten their passwords or lost their wallets in the early days of Bitcoin. This leaves even fewer Bitcoin out there for people to actually buy or get their hands on through mining. Plus, every 4 years, Bitcoin goes through something called a halving. This is where miners earn half as many new Bitcoins as the previous section of time before the previous halving, which was obviously 4 years prior to that. What essentially this means is that it makes Bitcoin even harder to get over time because the mining rewards are in half. So every 4 years, it gets twice as hard to mine the same amount of Bitcoin. Or basically it means it takes twice as long with the same piece of equipment. Or you have to have a piece of equipment that's twice as good, which costs typically twice as much money. This helps protect the value of Bitcoin from going down, unlike regular money that governments can print whenever they want. Here's something pretty wild. There are about 59 million millionaires worldwide. If they all tried to buy Bitcoin, there wouldn't even be enough for each millionaire to have half a Bitcoin. That's how rare Bitcoin really is. And that's exactly why your little stash of 0.1 Bitcoin could be so valuable someday. So why would this 0.1 Bitcoin be worth much more? Well, this is based on analysts thinking that Bitcoin could be worth much, much more in the future. Cathie Wood believes that Bitcoin might reach $1.5 million a piece by 2030. Cathie Wood is the founder and CEO of ARK Invest, which is a company that focuses on investing in new and innovative technologies. She's very well known for making very bold predictions about the future of technology and finance. Her opinion really matters because she and her team do very in-depth research to support their investment strategies, and based on her track record, has become a very prominent voice within crypto investing. She even suggests that Bitcoin could go as high as $2.4 million if more big investors start buying in. These projections are obviously far, far in the future, and based on the idea that Bitcoin is becoming more popular with the large institutions and is seen as a safe space to store value, especially in countries where money loses its value very quickly. If Bitcoin's total value matches that of gold, which is about $16.5 trillion, each Bitcoin would be worth around $700,000 to $800,000 a piece. That would make your 0.1 Bitcoin worth $79,000. And if Bitcoin ever reaches $10 million per coin, then obviously you'd have $1 million right there. These huge numbers are not just guesses, and they're not just pulled out of nowhere. They are to give you a frame of reference on, kind of what that price and, value of Bitcoin would be, but they are based on how scarce Bitcoin is and how more people and companies start to use it. So holding on to your 0.1 Bitcoin could be a very smart move for the long-term future. So what exactly is fueling all of these very high Bitcoin predictions? A big part of it is the growing interest from major financial players. In early 2024, the US Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, approved 11 Bitcoin exchange traded funds, or ETFs. This makes it easier for everyday investors to get into Bitcoin without directly buying it. These ETFs have opened up the door for more people to invest in Bitcoin through very traditional finance finance markets. At the same time, big companies are buying up Bitcoin and holding on to it. For example, Strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, now holds over 500,000 Bitcoin. This trend is reducing the amount of Bitcoin available on exchanges, which can drive up the price as demand increases. Fidelity has noted that the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges has dropped to its lowest level since 2018, partly because public companies have purchased nearly 350,000 Bitcoin. This shift is generally suggesting that more investors are seeing Bitcoin as a long-term investment rather than just a quick trade. With more institutions getting involved and the supply of Bitcoin becoming scarcer, the value of your 0.1 Bitcoin could grow significantly over time. So why has Bitcoin been touted as this place to store your money? Well, it's because it's considered as a good way to protect your money from inflation. Unlike regular money that governments can print more of, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. In fact, between January of 2020 and October of 2021, the US has increased its money supply from $4 trillion to $20 trillion. This means that 80% of the US dollars in existence were printed in just 22 months. This kind of money printing can lead to inflation where the value of money decreases over time. Let's say, for example, the entire value of the world economy is $100 and the US has in existence 100 single dollar bills. Well, let's say then that the US decides to print 100 more dollars. Well, that doesn't mean that the entire value of this world economy is now $200. Where would that value have come from? Just printing the money? What happens is that now the value is still $100, but each of those dollars has half as much value. So your single dollar buys 50 cents worth of products in this economy. So even holding a small amount of Bitcoin can be a smart move to protect your money from losing value over time. That's essentially what inflation is. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has a built-in system that reduces the rate at which new coins are created. This is known as halving. In 2024, there was a halving, and after this, Bitcoin's annual inflation rate dropped to 0.83%, which is even lower than gold's inflation rate. This makes Bitcoin a more predictable and stable store of value. In countries experiencing high inflation, like Argentina with a 276% annual inflation rate, people are turning to cryptocurrencies as a way to preserve their wealth. So we've seen how Bitcoin can protect against inflation, but how does it compare to gold, the traditional safe haven asset? As of 2025, gold's market capitalization stands at approximately $14.7 trillion, while Bitcoin's market cap is around $1.58 trillion. As you can see right here on this Pocket Opinion article, it shows the differences in their market cap, as well as some other things like their supply characteristics, age of the investment, and volatility. They're very, very different. Bitcoin's market cap is much smaller, but their supply cap is fixed by code, making it very, very scarce. And then the investment age, obviously it's been around 16 years instead of the entirety of the earth, as well as the volatility. Gold is much more stable volatility wise than Bitcoin has been, but that also has to do with the age of the asset. So if we think back to the market cap here, this means that gold's total market value is roughly 9 times larger than Bitcoin's. However, Bitcoin has some advantages over gold. It's more portable, being that it's digital. It's easier to divide, same reasoning, and it can be transferred quickly around the globe. Also, as we know, Bitcoin's supply is capped at 21 million coins, making it absolutely scarce, whereas gold's supply increases about 1.5% annually due to mining. If Bitcoin's market cap were to match gold's, each Bitcoin would be worth over $1 million. That would make your 0.1 Bitcoin worth more than $100,000. While this scenario is speculative, it highlights the potential upside of Bitcoin as it continues to gain acceptance and adoption. In summary, while gold has a long-standing history as a store of value, Bitcoin's unique properties and growing adoption could position it as a formidable digital alternative in the years to come. So why does Bitcoin's price seem to jump every few years? Well, it's largely due to an event called the halving. You can learn more from this article at Bitcoin Magazine Pro, examining the 2024 Bitcoin halving effect price on the movements. But essentially, this is when the reward for mining new Bitcoin blocks drops in half, reducing the rate at which new Bitcoins enter circulation. So the most recent halving occurred in 2024, decreasing the block reward from 6.25 to 3.125 Bitcoin. Essentially what this means is when you mine one full block on the Bitcoin network, you will receive 3.125 Bitcoin as a reward. Historically, these halvings have led to significant price increases. For example, after the 2012 halving, Bitcoin's price surged from around $12 to $1,000 within 1 year. Very similarly, following the 2016 halving, the price climbed from about $650 to nearly $20,000 by the end of 2017. The 2020 2020 halving saw Bitcoin's price rise from about $8,000 to nearly $70,000 within a year. These patterns suggest that reducing the supply of new Bitcoins can create a supply shock, especially if demand remains steady or increases. This scarcity can drive up prices, benefiting those who already hold Bitcoin. So if you own 0.1 Bitcoin, you're positioned to potentially benefit from this cyclical price increase. So if you made it this far, you understand why owning just 0.1 Bitcoin isn't just a small win, it's actually a big deal with a long-term investment horizon. With only 21 million Bitcoins ever to exist and over 94% already mined, your slice of the pie is becoming increasingly rare. The recent halving in April of 2024, which reduced the block reward to 3.125 Bitcoin, has historically led significant price increases within 12 to 18 months of the halving. Analysts are very optimistic, with some predicting Bitcoin could reach 150,000 to 200,000 by the end of 2025, very much driven by institutional adoption and macroeconomic factors. In general, holding on to your 0.1 Bitcoin could potentially be worth $15,000 to $20,000 in the near future, within 2025 really. And if Bitcoin ever reaches $1 million per coin, your 0.1 Bitcoin would be valued at $100,000. All this to say, Bitcoin is definitely something to keep an eye on and even get involved with. If you want to get involved, I have some links below to Coinbase and crypto.com where you can get $50 worth of crypto just for signing up with those links. And if you're interested in other crypto, especially meme coins, I'll leave a link to MoonShot where if you sign up with that link and click the claim meme coins button, you'll get some free meme coins. I hope you learned something and enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like and click subscribe to stay tuned for all things crypto. I'll catch you in the next one.